Greetings, ladies and gents, and welcome to this latest episode of Tales from Outer Space, taken from the subreddit HFY. The links to all the stories will be down below, and as always, I hope that you enjoy. And if you do, please consider subscribing. Story number 1. It's a Human, written by You Sure I'm Not a Robot. "It's a human?" asked the medic. "We've never had one of those before." "Its ID lists it as a human. Might be more than one kind, I guess," replied the nursing brood. "Is it broken? I'll have to research this. Is it supposed to look like that? Poor thing is all skin. Did it lose its fur? It only has scraps left." The nursing brood brought out the ID. "I think that's what it always looks like." The pity was evident in its voices. The medic wiped the human's face. "There's a lot of liquids. I'll need to analyze it." She inserted the swab into her mouth. "It's saline solution, trace minerals, also some form of plasma. Aftertaste of decaying cell structures, iron rich." "Oh, frick, it's on drugs! Adrenaline, industrial cleaner." She vomited up the contents of her third stomach. The nurse quickly grabbed her equipment and sprayed the counter-agent to the adrenaline on the medic. "Please hold on, this will reduce the effects. Stay calm, it didn't have time to reach your hearts." The medic gripped the floor with every appendage. It felt like her carapace was about to burst. Finally, she could speak. "I want this room sealed. I want everyone warned to stay away, and I want everything that we know about humans on my datapad. Right now." "Contact the port. They must have met the species before. Why is it here anyway? What happened? Is it the poisons?" "I'm sorry, it was delivered by the security team. Apparently there was a serious accident in the night quarter. It was involved, but I don't know more until they report back to us. They thought that it was dead." The nurse turned back to the patient. The human was on a medical bed that was several inches too short. Its garments were torn apart, covered in grime of the accident. Or was it like that? Many addicts look rough. It shook its heads, then you can never tell with aliens. It could be a mating ritual. It often was. Her musings were interrupted by a movement. The human turned itself over, groaned, and released poisonous gas throughout the room. Alerts began screaming, the lights switched to an orange warning pulse, and the doors began sealing. The shriek of machines drove the pair from the room. It sealed slightly behind them. The now disgruntled medic was watching through the cameras. Biodecontamination involved a lot of scrubbing. Her datapad had no information about human biology, simply an instruction to inform the human government and the ship that it arrived in. Her nurse had demanded sick leave and hazard pay. Now the ward was quarantined. The human would just lay on the bed, occasionally making unpleasant noises. Her new nurse was built like a tank. It had been a second from the psych ward. She didn't know the species, but from the size, it could remove the human easily. She had authorized the medbots to approach the human. A medical team was being assembled, gathering the best consultants the planet had. Someone mentioned biowarfare, and that got things moving. The monitoring continued. Occasionally, the human would release more poison. The medbots reported that the human seemed to be in a respiratory failure, its breathing becoming intermittent, interrupted by loud exclamations and what may have been speech. After a serious expense of medical experts, the medic was summoned. "We think that the poison might be a defensive measure. It's obviously injured. The drugs it consumed may be making it worse. From the sounds it's making, it's in distress. We need to examine it closer, but be careful. It may be hostile." The medbots approached carefully. They began putting restraints on the visible limbs of the human. All 5 of them. The first 2 passed simply enough. Then things went downhill. The human woke up and seeing the two medbots rearranging things that they probably shouldn't have, it hurled both the bots into the wall, shouting in rage. The monitor reported that adrenaline was now increasing exponentially in the room. The human began unstrapping its limbs. The medic had thought that it couldn't get worse. Now that the creature was attacking, she had no idea where it had concealed its drugs. But now it was a monster. The levels of adrenaline in the room would kill the hive mind. She had one option left. Her nurse had been sealed into the finest biowarfare equipment the hospital could provide. It walked into the ward and opened fire with the best stunner the psych ward had. The human, still tangled in the straps and sheets, took a bolt after bolt. Apparently, even more incensed, it seized the monitor beside it and threw it at the nurse. The final shot hit the human decidedly between the eyes, as did the monitor when it hit the nurse. Both of them collapsed. Security was mostly paperwork around here, but the night quarter has its moments, thought the constable. Now he had to retrieve the body of the alien from the hospital. Sad, really, that it had died so far from home, but it would be treated with honor. He arrived to panic. Security demanded his ID, and when he mentioned who he was there to collect, he was hustled into a meeting room. From the sirens and the air of panic, something was going on. The medic was the first to reach him. "What did you leave here? Aliens are one thing, but this is a monster. We had to close the whole place down." The constable shook his mandibles in confusion. "We left you a corpse. How is that dangerous?" The medic was screeching now. "A corpse! That thing is alive and on enough drugs to kill everything in the building. It just demolished my nurse and most of the equipment in its room, not to mention poisoning the place. Where is the creature from?" The constable quickly read the report. "It's an engineer. It arrived yesterday, waiting for its new ship. It's a male. It was drinking in the night quarter when there was an accident." "A bad one. He recovered the wounded and then the vehicle exploded. We recovered his body, and he had been thrown 10 meters into a building. Of course he was dead." "That is not dead out there. Consider that the medical opinion. Find me someone who can sort this out. Otherwise, the military will be here next." Engineer Eels walked through the deserted hospital. It had been quite difficult to keep a straight face when security had explained the problem and showed him the recordings. He had refused all the bioprotection gear to the dismay of the medical staff. He sat beside his bed. His brand new engineer was snoring and farting happily. The stunner had, in the end, lost out to a long day on the beer. "Engineer Schultz, wake up now." The groggy human looked up. "Eels, what are you doing here?" He pushed himself up. "Where is here anyway?" "Sorry, I seem to have lost track of the night. Weird dreams. Am I due on board already?" Eels smiled. "No, you're fine. Just let me do the talking. Also, sincerely, what the frick were you eating yesterday?" Schultz frowned. I don't know. The local version of a kebab, I think." "Well, don't eat another one. Come on, let's get you onto the ship. Apparently, you're a hero." End of story number 1. Story number 2. A Very Human Challenge, written by Anti-Money Squandering. "What are the mammals making such a noise about now?" His snout had turned to face the source of the racker's shouting, a small table ringed by watching humans. Seated at the table were 2 more, their faces red and streaming liquid as they ate out of bowls laid in front of them. Despite their clear discomfort, they laughed and joked along with their audience. "An eating challenge," his clutchmate responded, flicking his tongue out past his sharp lips in disapproval. He turned his attention back to the large keg of meat on his plate. "Ignore them, Valil." Valil nodded his large head in agreement, but still swung it back to view the humans after a few minutes. "Where is the challenge, Dariel?" he growled, ignoring Dariel's pointed groan as he lifted his snout from his meat. Even for the mammals' tiny stomachs, that hardly seems like a great deal of food. Dariel stared longingly at his food before pushing it aside with one claw and a sigh. It's not the quantity of the challenge, Valil, you idiot. Valil turned to face him swiftly after that and hissed, baring his fangs. Dariel simply stared him until he had finished. Then what is it? Valil asked, drumming his claws on the table and leaving scratches on the cheap paint. It hurts them, Dariel answered, now looking over at the carousing humans himself. Valil narrowed his eyes. What? It hurts them? What do you mean? The food. The challenge. It's one of endurance or tolerance. The food causes them pain. They call it spicy. Heat that is not heat. Valil looked back once more at the humans, burst out laughing. One of the humans taking part now, gulping furiously at a large glass of white liquid. He looked back at his clutchmate, opened his maw, before blinking and turning back to the humans. The other human now held up his hands in victory as the watchers cheered, a smile on his face as though he was covered in a red sheen. Is it poison, then? Dariel paused before answering, idly tearing strips off of the meat with one claw. His tail raised from the floor as it hovered in front of his face to contemplate its venom-tipped end. In a sense, I suppose, it makes their body activate the warm blood response to heat. It's why their faces are so disgustingly wet. It does at least give them a more pleasant color. He preened, scratching his own red-scaled body. To what end? To develop immunity. Well, one told me that they do it to develop a tolerance for the substance after a while. And what benefit does that give them? Dariel stared back at him for a few moments, licking his snout. Eventually he clacked his teeth a few times at a shrug. It allows them to eat more of it. That doesn't make any sense. Eat a poison so that they can get better at eating the poison. Dariel dragged his hunch of meat back in front of him and hissed in frustration. They're humans! Why would they make sense? Valil blinked slowly in response. Good point. End of story number 2. I hope that you enjoyed, and if you did, please consider subscribing. If you wish to support the author, there is a link to the original story, so pop over there and give him your support. If you wish to support this channel, however, there are a few ways to do so. The best and easiest would be to share this video with other people, as well as liking, subscribing, and leaving a comment. All of these things tell the algorithm that this channel is at least vaguely interesting, and that may share it with other people. If you wish to support the channel in some other manner, watching my other videos would also help tremendously. Or, if you really like, there is a link down below to leave a tip or to join the Patreon. Any and all support is very much appreciated. And I hope that you all have a good one until the next time, and I'll see you then. Cheers.